Welcome back. We are still on the topic percentages. In the previous video, we learned some basic things about interest. In this video, we are going to learn how to calculate simple interest. Simple interest. We are going to use the same example we used in the previous video. Mr. Samoa deposited 1,200 Ghana cedis in his bank account for 3 years. The rate of interest was 10%. As we learned in the previous video, the amount of money that Mr. Samoa deposited in his account is known as the principal. So here the principal is 1,200 Ghana cedis. The question tells us that the rate of interest is 10% and the money was in Mr. Samoa's account for a period of 3 years. So the time is 3 years. Now we are going to learn how to find the interest at the end of the 3-year period. As we learned in the previous video, at the end of the first year, Mr. Samuel's interest will be 10% of his deposit or his principal. Now 10% is the rate of interest. So at the end of the year, his interest is going to be 10% of his principal or his deposit. His principal or deposit is 1,200 cedis. So at the end of the first year, Mr. Samuel's interest is equal to 10% of 1,200 cedis. And this will give us 10 divided by 100 times 1,200 cedis, which is 120 cedis. So this is his interest at the end of the first year. Now, at the end of the second year also, Mr. Samuel's interest will still be 10% of 1,200 cedis. And this is the same as 10 divided by 100 times 1,200 cedis. And this will give us 120 cedis. At the end of the third year also, Mr. Samuel's interest is still 10% of 1,200 cedis. And this is 10 divided by 100 times 1,200 cedis, which is 120 cedis. So we can see that if we are calculating for simple interest, then the interest at the end of each year will be the rate of interest times the principal. Here the rate of interest is 10% and the principal is 1,200 cedis. So at the end of each year, Mr. Samuel's interest will be 10% times 1,200 cedis, which is 120 cedis. So at the end of the first year, the interest was 120 cedis. So at the end of the first year, the interest was 120 cedis. At the end of the second year, the interest was 120 cedis. And at the end of the third year, the interest was 120 cedis. So if you want to find the total interest at the end of the 3 years, it's going to be the interest at the end of the first year, which is 120 cedis, plus interest at the end of the second year, which is 120 cedis, plus interest at the end of the third year, which is also 120 cedis. You add these three and you are going to get 360 cedis. So at the end of the 3-year period, Mr. Samuel's interest will be 360 cedis. This is how to calculate for simple interest. To make things simpler for us, there's a formula that we can use to calculate for simple interest. If P represents the principal, R represents the rate of interest or the rate, and T represents time, then simple interest is equal to the principal P times the rate R times time T divided by 100. The 100 here indicates that the rate is a percentage. So if you have the principal, the rate, and the time, we can multiply them and divide it by 100, and that will give us the simple interest at the end of the period. Once again, 100 here indicates that the rate is a percentage. Now let's apply this formula to solve the question and see if we will get the same answer as we had before. Once again, the question is, Mr. Samoa deposited 1,200 Ghana cedis in his account for 3 years. The rate of interest was 10%. So the principal P is 1,200 cedis. The rate of interest is 10% and the time is 3 years. So we are going to substitute these three information into the formula. So simple interest is equal to the principal, which is 1,200 cedis, times the rate. Now here we are using 10 because we have 100 here, which indicates that 10 is already a percentage and the time is 3 years. So the simple interest is equal to the principal, which is 1,200 cedis, times the rate, which is 10, times the time divided by 100. And this will give us 360 cedis. So you see that we got the same answer as we had in the previous slide. So this is how to calculate for simple interest. Simple interest is equal to principal times rate times time divided by 100. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe to this channel for more videos. In the next video, we are going to apply what we've learned about simple interest in this video to solve practical problems. Bye bye.